We need a distraction.
So we're about halfway through our journey in the first season of the Silo, and in episode 5 we got a really good look at life in the Silo this week, learning what happens when people die and, more importantly, how people react, especially when there's been 2 high profile murders. Everything we see in this episode kind of poses more questions. What's in the janitor's closet? What's the syndrome? And why do the population not know about the stars? So in this video, I'm going to ask some questions, go over some possible theories, and read your comments from the last video, so stick about. First of all, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. If you are a repeat viewer and you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're a brand new viewer, subscribe and give a like, why not? So the first scene I want to talk about is the funeral. And it's not really the funeral itself, it's more Bernard. Because he was really awkward in this scene giving the speech, and I think that's because this was him sort of lying or performing in public rather than manipulating behind closed doors. Basically, he's not used to having to do his dirty work in public. Because we see how skillfully he sort of sets up the story behind the deaths and what's happened. So he's not used to sort of directly dealing with people in this way, and maybe that's his weakness. If Juliet does find something out about the silo, she could hold it over him. We're assuming she'll discover the secret of the silo and try and tell everyone and expose it, but what if she uses that knowledge as leverage against Bernard to change something? Think about that for a second. Also, Bernard keeps saying he doesn't want to be mayor long, so he definitely doesn't like being in the public eye this much. It's almost like what he's doing in admin is more important than being mayor. And we got a good look at judicial this week, and I think admin slash IT, we're probably going to get an episode on them. I don't think it will be episode 6 though. Now I want to talk about the population of the silo, because we did learn a little bit about it this week. Some people, as far as we're aware, it might just be elderly or affected by something called the syndrome. So I assume this is just a guess. It's probably linked to like living underground so long and vitamin deficiencies and all that things. Also learn the population of the silo as well, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But yeah, I want to talk about the people in the silo just now, because we're assuming that they survived some sort of catastrophe, and part of me felt, well, maybe this is like a prison or something and they've just forgotten it. But yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, it sort of lines up with the fact that none of them want or expect to leave. But the fact that they can and they choose not to, that sort of discounts the whole prison theory for me. Or, you know, it's evolved like Australia, where it's now its own population and civilization kind of thing. I did entertain that for a second, but I don't think the prison theory is likely. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if it's not a prison, then they keep talking about the rebellion. We assume that the rebels lost. What if they won? They changed their own history to how they want, because we're assuming that the rebels are the good guys. What about if they're the bad guys? So maybe, you know, Sims and Bernard and a few other people are aware of this, and that this is what happened during the rebellion all these years ago. And I did think that was a little bit likely for a second as well, but then you've got to discount it, because they'd need to commit mass murder in order to cover it up, or, you know, silence the entire population of the silo. Which, as it keeps having to evolve and grow with more generations of children and people in it, that would be a hard one to cover up. I mean, how would you silence that many people other than the threat of death? And you can't kill them because you need the human race to survive. So yeah, not really believing that one either. Now, talking about life in the silo and going back to the funeral scene, one thing that has been erased, it seems, is the concept of an afterlife. I mentioned this in my review, and if you've not seen it, I'll leave a link at the end of this video. But for me, this was one of the first big what the fuck was going on in this episode. Because destroying books to change or hide your history and facts is one thing, but how would you erase everyone's faith? I mean, if you destroy a book, someone might be able to copy it or at least make a reasonable copy from memory. But if you destroy that, then it's just a story to tell and that might eventually fade away. But faith's a little bit bigger and a little bit different in that sense. Because how do you raise everyone's faith? It's a very private thing that's mostly passed down within families. So yeah, the fact that they don't have a concept of the afterlife also sort of leads into the fact that, they don't have a plan or aspirations to leave. They don't see that there's anything more than the silo in their real lives and also in their deaths, which, yeah, psychologically and sort of sociology wise, that's pretty interesting that an entire civilization or culture has that point of view. So, if you haven't seen it, I done a theory video last week, and I'll just quickly go over one of the theories that the inhabitants of the silo are descendants of a company like, say, Google, Facebook, or Elon Musk employees, and that these are just the company's descendants. And the no religion kind of plays into that because the way that they sort of talk about their belief in the circle of life in the silo, it seems like it's a bit more cultish or a bit more like a company ethos or a corporate policy. So if these are the children of survivors who work for a multinational company, then no religion would sort of make sense. As when you think about it, if you work for Google at the moment or you work for any company, you're probably not going in talking about your religion every day. It's a very private thing. So that kind of adds up with how you would potentially remove or erase religion or faith within the silo. But again, let me know what you think. And there's definitely a culture in the silo that's missing things that we have in our culture: religion, afterlife, no desire to explore or really evolve beyond the silo. Humans are naturally curious, but these ones aren't. So what has happened that's hammered into them the fact that they can never leave this place? And we finally get a number on the population this week, and it's just over 10,000. And that was very interesting because we've had the whole setup that they're obviously controlling or artificially controlling the birth rate, and they're doing it on two levels, letting people think that they've won the lottery and then still keeping the implants in, and then letting people that they want to have children. So yeah, 10,000-ish, and we don't know that that's the most that it can hold, but the fact that they're managing the population seems to indicate that that's a kind of stress. But going backwards, because I think you've always got to go backwards to work it out, I wonder what the population of the silo was going in over 150 years ago, and how long has it been artificially controlled? I mean, you've got limited resources and things like that, but the silo, it seems to be, or it completely is self-sufficient, so as far as we know, they can't go outside and they don't get resources from anywhere else. So there might be a bit of an abundance to start with, but within a generation or two, that's where you might have to struggle and sort of manage and control things. And I've said it before, there's no plan or aspirations for anyone to leave the silo. So was this the expectation from day one? Is that why there's no desire to leave or curiosity to leave? Again, they mention the circle, and it seems that everyone exists to serve life in the silo. And I just wonder if they're going to address this, but what happens to people that don't fit into the roles, like, extreme criminals, people with severe mental disorders, alcoholics, drug addicts, that kind of thing? How do they deal with them? I wonder if they're going to bring that up. Now, I've mentioned the circle in the silo, and the silo is full of circles. In this episode, it is screaming out. So, the silo itself is literally a circle. You see it on Bernard's screen. The symbol for the staircase itself is a circle. The only sort of belief that they describe as the circle of life, kind of. The lights in Bernard's office are circular as well, and Jules's badge for being sheriff is circular, and of course, the Earth's orbit is circular, and we're going to get to the stars thing in a moment. But yeah, in this show, they are really letting us know that this is how life works in this place, and that's how it's got to work. I mean, a sort of good comparison is Game of Thrones when Khaleesi said she was going to break the wheel. This is literally what she was talking about. But let's get to the big one. They don't know about stars. Now, even on a sort of small level, this is really huge. Just think about it. Humans have been looking at stars, dreaming about stars, and studying them pretty much since day one. We've had entire religions and civilizations that have been built on looking at the stars, and we're still doing that today. And not just the stars, other planets. If they don't know about what stars are, they're not going to know that there are other planets out there as well. So this definitely answers the question that yes, they are on Earth, because again, one of the constellations that he mentioned, the W, is one that we can see Cassiopeia. But for these people to not know that they exist and not know how Earth's orbit works and things like that is massive. But then when you think about it from a sort of life in the silo perspective, they don't rely or depend on seasons or need to plan round them the way we do. There's no nature that would affect crops or cause hurricanes or typhoons or something like that that's going to mess with life in the silo. Everything is perfectly managed unless there's an accident or deliberate act of sabotage. So I get why teaching people that might not be the priority when, you know, you've got to teach them how to fix an air conditioner or a scanner or something that's going to keep people alive. Astronomy wouldn't be top of the list, but it is so weird that, you know, they've got no idea of what the concept of the greater galaxy is. And also, this lets you know that none of humanity's achievements up until this point have made it into the silo, or at least made it by the rebellion. So I don't just mean landing on the moon, I mean all the pop culture stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek. That concept has never even entered these people's heads for a second. But the bigger question is, were the stars forgotten or erased? I keep going over it, but there's no plan to leave the silo and no sort of real aspirations among the population to do so. So learning about the stars might be a reflection of their journey with them looking upwards for something bigger. Well, I mean, Lucas is doing the research, but I suppose there could be books or relics or data on a hard drive somewhere. But yeah, I wonder, are they going to work it out? Is it going to be a revelation? If it is, I mean, imagine learning that there's an entire universe out there after your entire culture has been, you know, this multi-storied structure that you've lived in with no experience of the outer world. It would completely blow your mind. But yeah, what do you guys think about the stars thing? Were they forgotten or were they purposefully raised? I really want to hear your opinion on that one more than anything else, so let me know in the comments below. Now, one of the big mysteries that was set up in the last episode is what's in the janitor's closet. And if you look, when Sims does open the door, you can see what looks like reels of film. Although, I guess it's not films in terms of, you know, films. It's probably more recordings of inhabitants of the silo. So, is it CCTV, Big Brother style monitoring? Probably. We've seen repeated mentions of people thinking they're being watched and listened to, but so far we haven't seen any real evidence of surveillance in the silo itself, which is kind of odd when you think about it, because you'd want to monitor certain machines or certain areas to make sure that fights don't break out or sensitive equipment or things like that. So maybe they had it and it stopped working, or maybe they had it and they got rid of it during the rebellion, I don't know. But is the janitor's closet a hub for some sort of big monitoring Big Brother device? Friends of Judicial or friends of the silo don't really exist, and Judicial are just acting on information that they've picked up when they've been monitoring the inhabitants. Again, think about that, because when Billings described who they were, they said that they can't testify in court and they never go public. So yeah, that kind of mirrors a lot of what's happened in our own world the last decade or so with Snowden and things like that. But the janitor's closet is yet to be revealed. It might contain the history of the silo. That's possible as well, but I don't think it would all be in the one place, and I don't think it'd be so easily accessible. But let me know what you think about the janitor's closet, what's inside it, what's yet to be revealed. Now, if you have read the books and you do know what happens, please don't post any spoilers in the comments below. I've already had to delete some. The whole part of the fun of this video and the fun of the show is theorising what's going to happen, so let us just enjoy it, and you can just enjoy it as well. Now, I've already posted one theory video about the silo, and I've got quite a few comments on that, so if I didn't reply to your comment, I do apologise. I try my best, but I can't do it all the time. Sometimes I just miss them. But I want to go over some that were left on the last video. And if you want your comments to be read out, you know, comment on this one. Why not? I'll do it. I'm a nice guy. So the HC says, I've solved it. The silo is what eventually happens to Apple's campus and the staff on site. Kinda, you know, I've said that with the whole corporate thing. I agree with that. I think there's a certain corporate structure to the silo. I also think you're kind of being funny with that as well. But yeah, I think that's a good point and I kind of agree with it. Sean Craig Parkinson says, I'm over it. Nothing happens. No pace at all. No character development. No one is likeable. They're all miserable. And frankly, the storyline is boring. The two leads in episode 1 were good, but they both wandered outside and went to sleep, probably through sheer boredom. Apple got the money, but doesn't make for decent writing. And hey, I agree with that. The show is not for everyone, but that's absolutely fine. You can like what you like. You can like what you don't like. I hope I don't comment too quickly, but they couldn't have elevators. The air pressure difference would give them the bends. I know it's weird to think about 140 stories going down, but you have to go down slowly, I would think. Remember the sick, dead workers just from building the Eiffel Tower foundations. And yeah, he's right. I've heard about this. I think it was with the Brooklyn Bridge as well. There was an elevator there, and the guys that were working on the foundations, when they were going up to the top, started to get sick. And that's where they found out the bends were from. So I suppose that explains it, but the whole thing with the pack this week makes me think that there's something else to it. But I really like your thinking on that one, Richard. That was a great comment. But as always, that's just my theory. If you want your comments read out, or you've got a theory on the show, you know what to do. Comment below. Then add the ending in.